All right, I don't know why I'm not at a full screen. Hold on one second. Wow, patience is needed. So I'm gonna try not to throw my phone against the wall right now. Hold on a second.
The man is gone. Wow, no video and no sound. I feel drunk with power. Oh, he's back.
Oh, it's great. Hold on one second here. I'm only getting this tiny thumbnail and not usually what I get. So just I'm going to try to get it so it's a little bit bigger. Is it full size for you?
I
Do you?
have a side by side equal size, but I'm on a
Okay.
desktop.
Okay. I'm on my phone. All right. Well, we are just going to be just doing it like this. From my end, I can't like the like both of our heads side by side are like this big.
Oh,
So
I could sit up. You know, you're sitting higher than. Let me see. No, the chair's as high as it will go. Let's see if I can make myself the same size as you.
there we go. So, all right. Well, welcome everybody. It's Thursday, January 6th, and I told you we're going to have a special guest this afternoon. I told you, and last week I gave you a little bit of a sneak preview of who we're going to have on, and tonight I'm honored to host Father Michael Butler with us from Holy Transfiguration Church in Livonia, Michigan. And I'm going to have him just like I can't do the perfect intro, not as good as you can. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And it's really great to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you. The honor is all mine. I've been a fan of yours for a couple of years now. Um, especially in contest prep season when I have to do hours of cardio. You know, you've kept me sane on the treadmill. So yeah, I'm deeply grateful for that. Yes, but for the rest of your audience, I am an Orthodox priest, an Orthodox Archpriest actually. Thank you for the kudos on Orthodox Christmas. For those on the old calendar, tomorrow is Christmas. I'm in a new calendar parish, so we did it back on December 25th, but today was the Feast of Theophany, the baptism of Christ. So anyway, it's a good day for felicitations and greetings. Anyway, I am married. I've been married for 36 years. I have two grown sons who are much more red-pilled and with it than I am. I've come very late in life to certain understandings that some of you, I hope, now take for granted, so you don't make the same mistakes I did. I have been engaged in men's work, in reading and studying that for about the last 30 years. Since before Robert Bly wrote Iron John, I've been interested in this kind of work. I run my own men's group in my parish. If I can give a small plug, there is an online Orthodox men's organization that's just starting up that's called the St. Paisios Brotherhood, that I've started with a couple of other priests to give a place for young Orthodox men to encounter some discussion on positive masculinity in an Orthodox Christian context. In addition to that, I am a member of Ryan Mickler's Order of Man and the Iron Council, where I serve as a mentor to a number of the battle team leaders there. I have been a ritual elder at the European Men's Gathering in Denmark the last 2 years. So I have a nice history in archetypal psychology, Jungian psychology, ritual studies as well. And for the last 7 years, I have been a competitive amateur bodybuilder. Don't ask me to reconcile that with being an Orthodox priest. I can't. It's just something I enjoy. I like to push myself. And this is one way that I found to push myself physically, in addition to the ways that I push myself scholastically, academically, and spiritually. So it's just something I enjoy doing. And I seem to have gotten okay at it for being, an old man. And yeah, thank you for the one comment for, George's twin brother. No, he's much better looking than I am, but we are the same age. So we do have that in common.
We are the same age.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's who I am.
Excellent. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. To the guys that are out there, this is what 61 looks like. This is what 61 looks like when you take care of yourself, when you have goals. I will say this, that working out, and you can probably agree with this, the discipline of working out, Father Butler, does spill over into other areas of your life.
Oh, yes.
Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Discipline is fungible, to use the $10 word. If you can and I think this is one of the things why people like Jordan Peterson will say things like, get up in the morning and make your bed. If you can rack up even small discipline, even one little thing where you can have a tiny win first thing in the morning, it can change the mood for the rest of your day. And some of the early benefits of working out, for those of you that don't, you need to hit the iron. The early benefits are not physical. They're all mental, because you learn about delayed gratification. You learn how to work through pain. You learn how to work through things long-term where you don't see any results for a while. You do something for yourself, because you're going to be the first one who's going to see the results, and nobody else is going to see anything for 2 or 3 months. And you're going to wonder, why the hell am I doing this? It's not showing. I've been at it for 6 months. I still can't see my abs or something like that. But if you simply be diligent, eventually you will see the results, and you learn that discipline and to work this, and you learn how to grind. If you can learn how to grind anywhere in your life, you can grind everywhere in your life. Because I've at least found for myself, maybe George or the rest of you can confirm it, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you can be faithful to yourself in your workouts or in your schoolwork, or if you can bust your ass at work or wherever it is you're doing, that will translate into the rest of your life. And so if you can just get part of your life together, you're going to be better overall.
I like that. So you and I, we've had some interesting conversations and back and forth correspondence and such. And so I think we're going to be all over the place tonight. I don't have a list of questions or anything like that, because that sounds too much like an interview. So I just want to basically let the audience feel like that they are eavesdropping just on two dudes talking. So that, I think that's going to be the goal for tonight.
All right. I am pretty relaxed, but if I don't, I have, in addition to water, I have a nice little bit of port here. So
Nice.
It's a cold, I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania where the rest of you people are, but it's rather cold here in Michigan tonight.
Cold. Yeah, I took out the rock salt and the shovels about 2 hours ago, and we're expecting about 6 inches tonight overnight. So I'm actually expecting some snow, and I'll probably be shoveling in the morning, most likely.
Yeah, thank God I live in a house provided by my congregation, so I don't have to shovel.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
that's a small benefit. They put too much salt down, way too much salt, which is a problem. It tracks all over the house, but
all over the house.
Yeah, but oh my, I know. It's so sad. If that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, right. All right. So let's this is going to be stream of consciousness for me. Sure. And I'm also trying to put myself in the mind of the audience. Let's start with one of the most obvious things. In the upper corner, I put the Orthodox cross. Why does the Orthodox cross, why is it more than just, a vertical and a horizontal? Some people wonder, like, why are there different things, and why is that one on a slant? Answer that question.
All right. I can, good. That's an easy toss. I can do that. Okay. So we're up. You're going to make me look good here from the beginning. So I appreciate that. Yeah, the Orthodox cross is also called the three-barred cross, or the eight-pointed cross, if you count all the points on it. The top short bar is the title that went on Christ's cross. The King of the Jews is what is up there. So we have the little title. In Orthodox practice, though, it's usually replaced. We don't put the I-N-R-I, Jesus Nazareus Rex Judorum, in Latin, like you very often find on Western crosses. In Orthodox practice, we put Vasileus Doxis, we put the King of Glory. It's usually what's written on the little top piece up there. Of course, the second bar down, the wide one, is where Christ's arms went, and the slanted one at the bottom is where his feet were. And there's various explanations as to why the bottom one is slanted. Part of the explanations typically is, well, it shows the reality that Christ really did hang on the cross, because the weight of his body caused the foot beam to sag, when his body sagged, and to cause it to sag to one side. The more informed and a better theological reason for this is that we remember that Christ was crucified between two thieves, a repentant thief and an unrepentant thief. And so the foot bar points upwards towards the repentant thief and downwards towards the unrepentant thief. As if you don't know anything about Orthodoxy, it's rather like the line out of the what is it, Fiddler on the Roof. There is a meaning for everything, if not two or three, in Orthodoxy. Right. So, I sort of like that one, and I think I have looked at on icons to see, does the foot bar point up toward the repentant thief? And in fact, it does. So I think that has some reality to the explanation.
Here's a question for you. Now, I know there are some people who are not familiar with Christianity, and they hear the word Orthodox or Orthodoxy, and they automatically think Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah.
Now, are you ever mistaken for an Orthodox Jew?
Yeah, and it's really kind of funny. I know I'm sitting down here, but yeah, Orthodox Jews wear big hunkin' silver crucifixes around their necks. I try not to point that out too obviously when someone asks. Yeah. But yeah, well, Orthodox, you must be Jewish. No, dear, I'm Christian. It just means right believing. And what do you mean right believing? Well, the original church, the one that we trace our history all the way back. When Protestants ask, what denomination am I? I say I'm pre-denominational. The Orthodox were around before any of the other ones were. We wrote the Bible. You remember, written in Greek. At Jerusalem, Antioch, places like that. They spoke Greek. That'd be us. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot with my audience about things like monk mode, and that seems to be a popular thing amongst men.
Mm-hmm.
Is they say, well, I'm going into monk mode. Well, I'm a huge fan of Orthodox monks. I'm a huge fan of the monastic life. Talk to us a little bit about the real monk mode.
Okay, the real monk mode. Okay. Monasticism emerged in the Christian world very early. If you ask the monks, they say John the Baptist was the first monk because he lived alone in the desert. And some of the habit that Orthodox monks wear to this day go all the way back to John the Baptist. A leather belt around the waist. All monks and nuns wear a leather belt in remembrance of John the Baptist there. But it grew as a movement in the late 3rd into the 4th century. And men especially left the cities in droves to go and live a more devout Christian life without the distractions of the world. And they went in places like the deserts and the caves in Palestine, around Jerusalem, on the seacoast there, and especially in northern Egypt on the west side of the Nile. There were huge monastic communities there. That's where St. Anthony the Great went and was considered the father of monasticism, even though there were a few monks around before him that we know about. And monks go there basically to save their souls without the distraction of the rest of the world. They take vows: poverty, chastity, obedience, and stability, meaning that they promise to stay in the monastery of their repentance, if at all possible, for their entire lives. And many of them do that. It's a life of intense prayer. I have near me here in Michigan, there's a Romanian convent that I'm very close to. It's about an hour away from me, and I've been close to them for, going on 30 years now. And just they live this beautiful life. And the interesting thing about it is that, people would think that all these monks, like, my God, they're like just unicized, repetitions of exactly the same kind of, no personality, no individuality. Everything's just erased. They just live these regimented lives. And nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I go visit these nuns. Yes, they all dress exactly the same. They keep the same rhythm of life. They're all in church together about 8 hours a day. They actually pray 8 hours a day. They all have individual jobs and obediences to help run the monastery, but every one of their personalities is this beautiful flower of individuality. And the purpose of the monastic life is to reduce external influences and the passions that corrupt our souls, that distort our vision and our personality, to allow the real, authentic person to come out. And every monk or nun that I have ever met has been remarkably individual, and there's a reality and an authenticity there to them. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm going to share here. I have my icon corner over here against the wall. So I sit at my desk and work here, and I pray right, get up and take 2 steps left, but have a picture here. This is my spiritual father, the late Archimandrite Roman. He was a Romanian monk, 11 years in communist prisons, including one of the worst in Pitești, if you know any of the history of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
He spent 5 years of it digging the Black Sea Canal. And towards the end of his life, he got holy. The monastic life worked in him well. He became childlike. He became clairvoyant. Near the end of his life, we would go and visit him, and he would tell us stories about his own life. But we realized that the stories that he told us answered all of the questions we went to ask him. We never got to ask the questions. He answered them with stories before we could ask them. And he did that with everybody. And, we would compare notes and all. And it was remarkable. And one of the last things he told me, I asked him for a word near the end of his life. And he said to me, Father Michael, pray for your enemies and come to love. You will come to love them. In the end, that's what happened to me. And I can't imagine. I know in his earlier years, he had something like PTSD. He would wake up screaming in the night with nightmares and all. And yet, toward the end of his life, he came to forgive and to love the very men that nearly tortured him to death over 11 years. And that's a testimony to the power of Christ and the gospel. And monks and nuns just try to live that as intensely as they can. Yeah. And the nice thing is that monasteries are there for to visit. So, granted, with COVID and lockdown, it's a little more difficult. We can't stay the night at the monasteries, but in more normal times, if you have opportunity to visit a monastery anywhere, Catholic, Orthodox, go and visit and see what a quiet life can do, and see the benefits of a little recollection, a little running away from the world, a little time, apart can do for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a rosary from Holy Cross Monastery in Poland,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a prayer rope from Mount Athos,
mm-hmm.
and which was made by nuns there. There were, and when I use them, I think about their devotion. Now, I am not Catholic, but I use them for prayer. And some people say, well, that's all nothing but repetitious prayer. What would you say to people about repetitious prayer? Like, I know for me, it helps me focus. And so many people, when they pray, they get distracted about everything. And I love the focusing power of repetitious that almost sounds negative, because every time I hear the word repetitious, it always has a negative connotation. For me, it's not negative. It's focusing for me. Talk to us about that, focusing prayer.
Oh, actually, the People's Rooster here in the comments, the very last comment that came up, has it exactly. The scripture tells us to pray without ceasing. And so when the monks went into the desert, they went to attempt to do that and to learn to pray continuously. And they managed to do it. And what they started out, the earliest history we have is that they pretty much memorized all 150 Psalms. And they would just repeat the Psalms over and over and over. And they found, rather like you say, it's easy to be distracted when you have a lot of text there in front of you. And they began to simplify into what they called monologistic prayer. And the earliest, specifically monastic prayers, were like one verse out of the Psalms. O Lord, make speed to help me. O Lord, make haste to help me. Something like that. A clean heart create in me, O God, and a right spirit renew in my inmost parts. And they would just say that one verse over and over again. And in time, they adopted what's called the publican's prayer from the parable of the publican and the Pharisee. It says,
Yeah.
Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And they found that a very short prayer like that was easy to remember, that didn't distract you with what the text was about or the story or the narrative of it, was very easy to hold in the mind. And it did help to concentrate the mind on prayer. And they found that by careful, attentive repetition of the prayer, it not only started on the lips, but it would also go into the mind, and in time it would go into the heart. And the prayer would almost pray itself. There are accounts of Orthodox monks, for example, who have to go under surgery and are put under anesthesia for surgery, and their mouths are still saying the prayer, because they've been saying it continuously 24 hours a day for years.
That's
And
great.
even anesthesia won't stop them.
That's
And
great.
because they have the prayer going continuously like this, they do pray continuously as the scripture bids, but it also serves as a perimeter around their heart to guard their heart from outside thoughts, evil influences, and other things that would be disruptive to their souls. So you find these people who achieve that level of prayer are usually pretty calm, usually pretty retired, and generally very quiet. But you ask them something, as they usually don't offer advice unless asked. But if you ask them something, you'll find there's weight to their words.
Yeah. I knew one Orthodox monk who prayed the Jesus prayer for different people he knew.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just, in his mind, just every day, I mean, as he's chopping wood, as he's doing chores, he actually used that prayer to pray for other people. Tell us, how can you use that prayer for other people?
Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on everyone in my congregation. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on my wife, Annette. And maybe say that as many times as you need to in order for your own heart to be calm, and then go on to the next person. I've known a lot of people who pray like that. And you can also use the prayer rope for other things. I forget what I thought. I had done something sometime. Oh, I was complaining about my congregation to my spiritual father. And he told me to quit saying the Jesus prayer on my prayer rope, and I was to say the line from Psalm 50, a clean heart create in me, O God, and a right spirit renew in my inmost parts. And that was all I was allowed to do with my prayer rope for a while, until I got my heart right with my congregation. One of the best things that ever happened to me, really. And it worked very well. But just say, Lord, have mercy on so-and-so. Lord, have mercy on so-and-so. Or, like I was telling George before we got on, I have lost 4 members of my congregation in the last month. And so to use the prayer rope and say, Lord, have mercy on the soul of your servant Nicholas, and just say it over and over for a while. It's a simple and a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Do you have a date? Like, for instance, certain denominations love talking about different dates. I've seen them with their date on their t-shirt, the year on their t-shirt. And my thing, whenever I see people with a certain year on their t-shirt, and showing somebody nailing theses on a certain door at a certain church in Wittenberg, or different dates in the 15 and 1600s. I like to say I'm a 325 AD guy. That's my thing. Is there a date that kind of just stands out in your mind that's significant to you?
January 1, 2026, which is when I hope to retire from full-time marriage ministry.
Right.
Honestly, other significant dates, no, I do remember. They are, but they're all personal for me. I was chrismated into the Orthodox Church on the eve of Theophany on January the 5th, 1983. So, yesterday it was the 39th anniversary of my reception into the Orthodox Church, which for me is significant. And there's always services on the eve of Theophany, so I always get to be in church on that day and pray about it. But I remember it, and I remember the old priest who received me into the church, and the late Archbishop Dimitri of Dallas, who may well be a saint as well. That's always significant. I mean, the others, my children's birthdays, my anniversary, the anniversary of my ordination, those are significant. I always remember the day my dad died. He died when I was 8 years old, and it was January. It's coming up because I usually get crotchety, and I catch myself. I get crotchety and angry and upset, and I don't know why. And I realize, oh, it's almost January 24th. That's the day Dad died, and I catch myself. But I still do it unconsciously every year. So that's coming up, and it will be, 54 years, something like that. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
So I'm real weird with remembering dates like that. I always have been. I remember.
Did your mom remarry after your dad passed?
She did. She was 28 years old. She had 2 children, 8, and my sister was 7. She was a widow with 2 young kids, and she had gotten out of high school. My grandparents ran a restaurant, so she had been a waitress and was not able to support a family, as a waitress. So she remarried my stepdad, about 14, 15 months after Dad died. And Dennis was very good to us. We didn't get on quite so well. I don't know that sons and stepfathers ever get on quite as well as sons and fathers do. I've heard stories, that of others who were very glad for their stepfathers, but Dennis had a cruel streak to him, and especially when I was young, I was subject to a little cruelty there, and it's never abusive, but just mean stuff. And I didn't fully appreciate the fact that he had married a woman with 2 young kids and took us in and raised us as his own. That didn't fully kind of sink in until I was an adult. And thank God when I was in my 40s, it took me till I was in my 40s before, I sort of summoned up the courage to sit down with him one time when no one else was around and say, "Hey, Dennis, I appreciate what you did. I love you, man. Thank you for it. And I'm grateful." And it was a stupendous conversation. It's like decades of ice or resentment or something were just cracked and went away. And we were much better after that. But fathers and sons, stepfathers and sons, that's some hard stuff to work through. And it's part of the reason I did men's work, was trying to help work through some of those things for myself. As they say, in all research, there's me search. So that's why I did the psychology. That's why I looked at archetypal psychology. That's why I looked at men's work, trying to grow myself up and figure out what was the matter with me when I was young.
Right. So, all right. So here's a question that I know some people are going to wonder about. Mm-hmm. Now, you are Father Michael Butler, an archpriest. Mm-hmm. Tell us the difference between a priest and an archpriest and a bishop and a metropolitan and just
all of those. Archpriest is an honorific. Basically, it means I've been in the trenches for 25 years plus. No, that was with the Jewel Cross. When was I made archpriest? I was made archpriest, I think, 15 or 20 years after my ordination. It's just sort of a honorific that's given. In the Russian church, and I'm a priest of the Orthodox Church in America, which is a daughter of the Russian Orthodox Church. We follow Russian practices. And in the Russian Church, there are grades of the clergy that correspond to grades of civil service. And so like every 5 years, in Russia, you get a raise or you get a new dingleberry or something to wear or to hang on your vestments or something. And so I've accumulated 5 of those. And the title of Archpriest is one of them. And it's just, I'm an older priest. And I mean, we always line up by seniority. When were you ordained? It's been 27 years for me. It was 25 years for you. Okay, get behind me, Metropolitans are simply bishops of large areas. Archbishops are bishops with an honorific. I mean, there are still in the church, basically bishops, priests, and deacons are still the fundamental orders that there are in the church, which are there in the scriptures. And more important bishops get more titles. This is true in the Catholic Church, in the Anglican Communion as well. Cathedral canons and whatnot. But that's it. I'm just an old priest. That's all it means.
So here's a great question that I know the listeners are wondering about.
Okay.
You are married. People are saying, wait a minute, a priest who is married?
Mm-hmm.
Explain that. Or I should say, you got some explaining to do.
Oh, yes. Well, in the Latin West, of course, since 10th century, 9th century, something like that, priests have all been celibate. I think it had to do because in the West, they worked under a feudal system. And so clergy or parishes or bishops could inherit property and then pass on property to their children. So if you had a married bishop, if people gave property or money to the church, bishops got very wealthy vis-a-vis the other local lords and all. So I think that probably no more of that. No more of that. We're gonna nip that practice in the bud. But in the East, it was always the case that married men could be ordained. Now, once you're ordained a deacon or a priest, you cannot get married. You have to be married beforehand. And this makes a certain sense if you think about it. It would be a gross violation, of pastor congregational relationship if I were a single man trolling my congregation for a potential wife. I mean, the image is just simply ugly, and it would be an abuse of power on my part.
Sure.
A woman might not feel completely free to say no if I were making advances or something like that. So,
Sure.
It does, that's, as the young people say, that's kind of cringe. And I think they recognized it way back in the day. So a married man can be ordained, but like the scripture says, as St. Paul tells Timothy, husband of one wife. I have only my wife Annette. If God forbid she precedes me in death, I cannot remarry, because my marriage to my wife is supposed to reflect the relationship of Christ to his church. So I can be, Christ is faithful to his church. I need to be faithful to my wife, and I need to run my household well and raise my children well. Otherwise, how can I be expected to run a congregation well? So that's the way that it is. And
let's talk about some man stuff. Let's talk about some man stuff here. Yeah. What is
based?
First of all, is there?
Thank you. I don't know who the
crisis?
people's rooster is here, but thank you. I'm based. I love that.
He is very based. I can attest to that, definitely. Is there a crisis in masculinity and manhood? Does it only exist in the West? Is it more in the United States than it is in Europe, or let's say Russia? Let's talk about that.
Okay. Crisis. Yeah, I think there's a dumpster fire going on with regards to masculinity. I can only speak to my experience in America. It's absolutely here. And because of the work I've done in Scandinavia with the European Men's Gathering and some other men's groups in Scandinavia, I know that it's almost worse in Europe because of the much broader socialist government and economic policies there. You think about it, I mean, they have like cradle to grave care for everything. It's an extremely coddled population because, the taxes are very high, but they have, free medicine, free university, very, very generous maternity and paternity leave programs and what all. I think I know a man in Sweden who got a full year off when his kid was born. So did the wife, so did the mother. Which says, oh, that sounds great. But one of the things that I think happens is that if you know that there's always this safety net that's right there that's going to catch you, you tend to take risks. And I noticed some really risky behavior in some of the men over there, really pushing the edge on some stuff, especially with drug use and all, because it's just there, they'll take care of me. So I think it fosters a kind of dependency because you're not really responsible for yourself. The state is responsible for you. And a lot of the governments, as I say, are very socialist. In Scandinavia, I think women are running most of the, are all in the major positions of responsibility in the government. The prime ministers, the defense ministers, they're all very feminist and left liberal women. Yeah. And I have heard, it's really crushing the soul of a lot of the men over there. So Europe, I think, is a little worse than we are in some cases. From what I hear, it's not as bad in Eastern Europe, nor in Russia, nor in Latin America, where there seems to be a little more traditional understanding of gender roles. And maybe the best way to say it is that in those cultures where there's more reduction, where differences between the two sexes are minimized, there seems to be an identity crisis, both for men and women. And that's where you get these movements towards the extreme. So in America, where everybody is said, we're all the same and we all need to be the same, we have men who are acting out and various, so we get all kinds of LARPing masculinity in whatever way we want to LARP that. The growing of audacious beards, the lumber sexuals, the guys who will wear hiking boots and flannel shirts into the cubicle, which they may be fine for outside, but they're not really appropriate for the cubicle. But we're making a statement, and I think there is a lot of LARPing masculinity, whether or not it's authentic or not. I'm not real sure.
It's funny. I work a part-time job at a forensic facility, and work with murderers 3 days a week, and every single one has taken minimum one life, and many of them have taken many lives. This is the worst of the worst of the worst. It's a super max facility, and one of the things that they all have in common is something was up with their father. Either he wasn't there, or he was abusive, or too hard on them, or something. There's a weird father-son thing going on with these men. And I really do enjoy working with them. Honestly, some people say to me, like, how can you do that? I was always drawn to sinners. Always. As a sinner, I'm drawn to sinners. And I'm so aware of my own sinfulness as a man, as a citizen, as a son, every role. I fall short in every role that I have in my lifetime, which makes me want to reach out to other people. And one of the things that I've talked about in the past is the whole, and I talked about this with Dr. Robert Glover at one time, like this father wound kind of thing, this father wound. And I tend to run to the defense of fathers in the sense that it's not like your dad had to take a course in the same way you got to like study for your driver's license before you become a father. All you got to do is just create a child, have sex and create a baby. And most fathers were really winging it. I've said in the past that I understood my dad when I became a dad.
Yeah.
And that was a real trippy thing. You know, when I realized that my dad's not an expert in parenting and neither am I. He was winging it. So I started giving my dad a
Cut him
lot
slack.
less slack.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I started giving him more grace
Yeah.
and stopped pointing the finger at my dad.
Mm-hmm. I
Well,
look
what are
forward
your
to that
thoughts?
day. I look forward to the day when my sons have sons themselves. Yes, so maybe that. My boys are very good, and like I said at the beginning, they're much more red-pilled and based than I am, and they sort of came by that more naturally. And every so often, I get kudos from them for finally coming to understand something that they've known all along. So I too
Right.
am a work in progress. Um, but yeah, fathers and sons. And the problem with pretty much every category of bad behavior or trouble with boys or young men, there seems to be a common denominator of an absent or abusive father. And
Yeah.
I don't know quite what to do about that, except I don't know if it's appropriate to apologize for a generation on behalf of all of us who mucked it up, for the younger guys, or were wrapped up in our own things. I don't know. About the only story that comes to mind, I'll tell you when. Yes, and I see. Where is it? Yeah, Frederick from Denmark. Yeah, when I was in over on Jutland, doing the European Men's Gathering, not this last August, but August a year ago. And the last ritual that we did there was a blessing of the elders or a blessing of the fathers. And there were three of us who were serving as ritual elders for the gathering. And this last time, there were 100 men because that's all the Danish government would allow us to have with COVID lockdowns at the time. And out of these 100 men, 45 of them came to receive a blessing from me at the end. And I was dressed sort of like this, all in black. And these guys came up, and we'd worked through some nice men's issues over the course of 2.5 days. So I basically asked them, what are you taking away from this weekend? What are you taking? How are you going to go back and improve your life, or be generative to your family, or improve your community? And then I sort of composed a spontaneous prayer there with them. Afterwards, most of the men came up with tears in their eyes. And when I prayed with them, and I got real close, and held their hands and all, most of them wept. And I realized, like, the first time this happened, I was just astonished. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I realized it was not so much that I was a priest. It wasn't that I was Father Michael. It's that I was an older man. I was a father figure, listening to, affirming, and blessing a younger man. And the hunger for the simple affirmation and blessing of a father figure was so desperate that it drove them to tears. I
Yeah.
had no idea that the pain and the need was as great as it was. And for me to be able to provide that, I was in tears too, through part of it. And what some of these men told me, privately right there, that they had come out of and were going back into, would just rend your heart. It's astonishing what men live with, but it's an important thing. If I could, get on a little theological soapbox for a second, or approach a sermon, when we celebrated the Feast of Theophany today, which is the baptism of Christ. He goes to John the Baptist, he's baptized in the river, he comes up out of the water, the Holy Spirit comes down in the form of a dove, and then there's the voice of the Father, and the Father says, "You are my beloved Son, in you I am well pleased." And for a man to hear that and to understand it, to get that from a man that is significant to him, that's going to change your life. Will really change your
Yeah.
life. And we hear it, and maybe we know it here, but until we feel it down here in our hearts, my God, that is stupendous. And to find a way to be affirming and provide a blessing for young men, this is what I want to do. This is why I'm talking to you. It's why I try to do men's work in whatever small way that I can. But by God, men, if you've got someone in your life that can do that for you, you are thrice blessed. And thank God on your knees that you have someone like that in your life.
I stopped trying to, after your kids get to be a certain age, you have to stop giving advice to them unless they want it. Otherwise, you just become a pain in the neck to them. That's what I have found. So I have found rather than, I don't want to drive the kids away
Mhm.
in any form or fashion. So the most frequent thing that I text them, kids are funny these days. I mean, how, like, I'll be texting, I'll be texting with one of the kids, and then I'm just like, I will just press call, and it goes into voicemail, and I'm like, and then I will text and say, I know you have the phone in your hand, answer the phone. But they love texting. They love texting.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that just, I would much rather talk to them rather than text them. But
Such is
even
the world.
hammering on that is going to seem like nagging. But the most popular thing that I have said to my kids over the years since they've become adults, from a young adult age to being adults, is I love you and I believe in you.
Hmm.
And you know what? They never get tired of that. I
No,
never get, oh, come on, Dad, stop it.
nah. No, they don't. My sons are 31 and 29. The eldest was married in September. It was a great blessing. I got to do the wedding for him. So
Nice.
that was real special for me too. Um, but I noticed when they were both in their mid 20s, and they would come over or we'd go over to see them and whatnot. And when it came time to leave, they would kind of shuffle around and not really want to leave. And I finally figured they wanted a hug. I always
Yeah.
hug my boys, and they look
Yeah.
forward to it. And I notice how very few men touch each other anymore. Oh my God, so we're so terrified of anything remotely homoerotic, that we can't touch each other. But
Right.
man, every time I see my boys, I give them a great big hug and a kiss, and it's wonderful.
Yep.
And they look forward to it, and they need it.
Yep.
They really do. So yeah, guys, if you got kids or little nieces and nephews, or younger men in your life, hey, don't be afraid to show them a little affection. They are so desperately hungry for it, and a little bit goes a long way. It really does. But it's just, for me and my boys, it's just standard now. I see them, I give them a big hug, and it's honest. I'm so glad to see them, and I am so proud of the men that they've become. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to flip flop the question. I
Mhm.
asked, is there a crisis in masculinity, a crisis in manhood? Is there a crisis in femininity? And are women having a problem? I know a lot of, like, quote unquote man channels love talking about women and how rough it is to find a good woman, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah, whatever. I don't want to focus on that because there's a million other channels that do it, and they do it pretty well. Some of them do it pretty funny.
Mhm.
But let me ask you, is there a crisis in femininity, and are women struggling?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. In fact, before I really came to appreciate the problem with men, I noticed the problem with women first, because what I noticed was that women were stopped acting like women in the popular media. They all act like men now. I absolutely refuse to go see these girl power movies and whatnot, because
Yeah.
they all have male personalities. They're all badass, they all talk tough. They all, one scrawny little 125-pound woman beats up these, linebackers, and just lays them all
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
doesn't break a sweat, walks away from explosions, with, and it doesn't even muss her hair,
Right.
and this sort of stuff. And I noticed these are not feminine. They're not women. They are men. They're all male characters, but they're packaged up with boobs and an ass so that they look
Yeah.
better on screen. And maybe that's how they're selling movies now. But what I
Yeah.
noticed was things that are feminine, they're gone. They're going away, and they're very hard to find in the popular culture. And in order to be successful, women have been aping men. And of course, now, because women want to be men, now men have to act like women, so you get this whole role reversal. For those of you who don't know, Jonathan Pajot does wonderful work on symbolism, and he has a YouTube video on the inversion of masculine and feminine in popular culture. That's really one of the most insightful things he's ever done. So I commend that to you. Jonathan Pajot, The Inversion of Masculine and Feminine in Popular Culture. It explains it very well. But the women are hurting too. They don't want to be men. And I found even in my own marriage a few years ago, my wife and I had always done that stupid thing. Oh, well, where would you like to go for dinner? Oh, I don't care. You pick. Oh, no, it doesn't matter to me. You go ahead and decide. And finally I decided, enough of that. I'm just going to say what I want for dinner. And if she's got a better idea, she can offer it. But otherwise, it's usually Mexican. So we're going to have Mexican. And I said, I want Mexican tonight. Are you on? And you know what? Just that. Being mildly decisive and I'm not at all aggressive, but mildly more assertive, she relaxed so much more into her femininity. And the change was palpable. All I had to do was say what I wanted for dinner. It didn't take much. But she responded so very well. And so when men are more masculine, we allow women to be more feminine. And so the more we can grow in our own masculinity, and I mean in a mature masculinity, not in an adolescent, self-centered masculinity, but a mature masculinity which is concerned with others. And I'm working on the idea right now that masculinity is in fact a gift, first that was given to us, but it is a gift which we in turn give to those around us, that we as mature men are generative and supportive and providing and protecting of everyone around us. When we can do that, it really does allow everybody else around us to feel a lot safer, and everybody else's anxiety goes way down, and life is better. It really is. So there are strategic advantages for your own life for being masculine, and it gives space for the women in your life to be more feminine, and they're happier too. And it may go against feminist dogma and popular thought, but as I've always often said, don't look at what women say, or don't listen to what women say. Look at what they do, and you'll see that women respond very well when men are masculine, and it's a beautiful thing.
My audience, I told you he was based. This is a based priest right here. So you're not going to get some super soft world review here. This is a guy who has done the work, is doing the work, and helps others do the work. So I like what you said, Father Michael Butler, about being decisive, but not aggressive. Being decisive is being assertive.
Yes.
And
yes.
a woman appreciates a man who is solid. I've been saying this for years, that women don't want to be the rock. I tell men, be the rock, because if a woman has to be the rock, she's going to start to despise you if she has to start playing a more masculine role in the relationship.
Yep, it's true. Absolutely true. I learned that the hard way early on in my marriage. Listen to George, do what he says. We are to be the rocks, and to use a popular image, women and being a little more emotional are much more like the ocean, and they need to be able to crash against us and know that we can stand up to it. And when we can stand up to our women's feels, they calm down and they're comfortable and they know that they're safe. If we can't put up with them being angry with us, how are we going to protect them from anything else?
Correct.
Yeah. And it really does work like that. Yeah. And you need to have your own mission. She cannot be your mission. And don't go putting her on the pedestal, because you know what happens when someone's on the pedestal. I got to get in the camera. They are one up and you are one down. And
That's
no
right.
woman wants to date a loser. So you can't go putting her on the pedestal. You need to be the prize. You need to, to pull yourself together, do the things you need to do. Listen to Uncle George, what he tells you to do. And come on, guys, you tune in because the guy's got some wisdom here. So, listening to him is all very good, and watching the podcast is excellent. And yes, no one stirs coffee as well as he does. But you don't do the work, then, you've been entertained
Yeah.
for now. So,
Yeah.
so really work on yourselves, get yourselves together, become the prize, and you'll see how well the women in your life respond to that.
Let me ask you this then. Give me an operational definition of doing the work. That seems to be a popular phrase. I've even seen it on shirts.
Okay.
Do the work. What is the work?
The work, the opus, the great work. It is I call it becoming the best that you can be. Is simply it. Becoming the best man that you can be. I think that masculinity has an objective content. We all know what a manly man looks like. It may be hard to define. I get that, to put it into words, but we know it when we see it.
Well, it's like pornography. I remember when pornography, what was it? Larry Flint on trial? I forget.
Yeah.
And they asked, what is pornography? And I remember the prosecution said, I don't know, but I know it when I see it.
Exactly. And I think masculinity is the same way, but there is an objective archetypal quality to it because we all recognize it when we see it. That's why we all respond to The Rock. It's why we all respond to the same action hero movies. They're embodying these masculine characteristics that we all identify and value. And we say, gee, I wish I was like that. So we realize that in the degree that we can in our own life. I said at the beginning, I took up pumping iron seriously. I was 53. I knew I was never going to be as big as Arnold. So what? I look a lot better than every other 61-year-old guy I know,
Right.
and that's enough, including George. And that's enough. But I did the work with myself, with what I have to work with, and I carried it as far as I could. So, maybe you're in school, crush it in school. If you have a relationship, crush it in your relationship. If you have a job, your employer should weep at the thought of losing you. You should be that good. Don't half-ass anything in your life. But it comes down to being willing to grind. I think that's it. And just kind of to grind at it, at whatever it is you need to do, day in and day out, until you get to where you want to be. And even then, you set your sights on the next hill over, and you go after that as well. But so long as you're growing, so long as you're making money, so long as you're honing your skills, so long as you're dealing with your demons or your shadows, so long as you're overcoming your weaknesses, so long as you're building that side hustle, so long as you're making progress in the gym, so long as you're working and growing and striving, I think that's the work. And men are happiest when we're pushing our edge. So find out where your edge is and work there. And maybe that means you have to lean a little bit into your fear and, push yourself a little into uncomfortable situations. That's fine too. Do it just gently, but constantly push on that just a little. Always get a little further, whatever you're doing. And you'll look back in a week or a month and you'll see, damn, I've done a lot. And you'll be amazed. And not only will you be amazed, but you'll leave everybody else in the dust, because everybody talks about doing the work, but ain't very many people actually do it.
Right. It's interesting. I deal with a lot of people who have an issue with porn, and I don't understand. Well, at first I didn't understand how the younger generation deals with it, but they're mainly dealing with a virtual world. So porn has been easier since the virtual world has become people's reality more than reality is reality.
Yeah.
And, I live not far from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, one of the most underrated museums in the world. It's incredible.
It's good to
But
know.
when you go into the museum, you're surrounded by naked women.
Mm.
And people say to me, "What?" And I say, "Yeah, look at all the paintings. I mean, look at it's tapestries and paintings and statues of naked women." But not for 1 second do you ever think this is porn.
Mm.
You think, "Gosh, that's beautiful." What's the difference between something beautiful like art, a painting of a beautiful woman, and the objectification of a woman on porn? What have you? What is your sense of what's the difference between art and porn?
That's tough. That's tough, really, to say. I mean, I think part of it that there is an it. Let me back up a little bit. When I was a young man, I learned. I think I was still in college, so like early 20s. I learned to decouple the appreciation of a woman's beauty from lusting after her and undressing her in my mind and all. And I just simply learned to say, thank you, Jesus, for making women beautiful. And it was enough. It was enough. Because the appreciation of a woman's beauty is hardwired in us. It is part
Yeah.
of human nature. We would not reproduce if we didn't find women attractive. So trying to say, oh,
It's a great incentive, right?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
great. We're attracted to that beauty. It makes us. It does something to us.
Yes, it does. And that's natural, and it's put in us by God. So, the problem is, what do we do with it? And that's a very vexed question, especially in an age where boys come to puberty at 13 and they're not getting married until they're 30 or 33. What the hell are they going to do with 20 years of raging hormones and not a stable marriage in which to exercise that? Believe me, I recognize the problem, and I don't have an answer to that. But to go back to your question about pornography and art, I think it's the quality of titillation or arousal, that there can be an appreciation of the human form that is not meant to be sexually arousing. That doesn't mean that it's always going to work. I mean, there may be a lovely piece at the Museum of Art, which you get that little stirring in the loins every time you see it, but it's really not designed for that. And in another context, I remember when I've been a fan of bodybuilding for years, so I would go see shows. And I remember when they started doing women's bikini. And because I had seen, women bodybuilders. I don't find them attractive, but there were these fitness, they do stuff. Okay, there it is. And there was always, in those circles, they always managed to keep it aesthetic and they keep it athletic. And there was never a hint of sexuality in there. I never felt it in the audience. I never felt it, backstage when I was competing or when I was on stage. But when they introduced women's bikini, and one of the poses was the women turned with their butts to the audience and stuck their butts out to show the ham glute tie-in, is what they're doing. I remember I was in an audience the first time that happened, and the audience went dead silent. And they were shocked at that pose because it was the closest thing to a sexual pose that had ever been done. In a bodybuilding contest, in a venue like that. And they knew at some point, everybody felt they've crossed a line here. We have kept that attitude and that out of this sport up to this point. And, now nobody thinks anything of it, but I think we lost something when that happened. So I think porn or art or even athleticism is a matter of intentional sexual attraction. And when it's designed to be stimulating in that way, particularly for the desire to be seductive, because things can be, things that are, as many of you probably know, a fully clothed woman can be more seductive and more attractive than a completely naked one in her self-presentation. So nudity is not necessarily the thing, but the quality of seducing and drawing you in intentionally, I think there's where the problem is. I don't know. Does that resonate?
Do you think
does that make sense? That's the best I can come to.
Well, it reminds me of how I just think like feminism ruins everything. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion. But
I'll share that.
like when I go to a bodybuilding show, I used to go to bodybuilding shows in the 70s with my dad. My dad was a
Mhm.
bodybuilder.
Huh.
And I started bodybuilding as a teenager and became quite jacked and, you
Mhm.
know, aesthetically my role was to just become as aesthetically ideal as I could. So
Mhm.
I had Muscular Development magazine in my basement, and they always had
Mhm.
centerfolds of the, you know, and you'd
Mhm.
put them up on the wall, and you
Mhm.
know, while you're pumping, you'd say, "I want traps like that. I want triceps like that," and you know,
Mhm.
there was nothing weird about it. It's like you put your bodybuilding idols up. Vince
Mhm.
Gironda. I mean, my gosh,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, I mean, what a Greek god he was. You know,
Yes.
plus I like his attitude. I
Oh,
I'll never forget. I don't know if this is legend or not, but I remember. Did he call Arnold a fat fuck or what? It was
I think
like,
he did.
some,
I think he did.
I mean, that is, I mean, come on, that's funny as hell. I
No,
think.
no, but I get I these it's my you mentioned Vince Gironda, my own coach, who is a year older than us, dropped out of college in Massachusetts and went to Venice Beach in Southern California. He actually slept under the Santa Monica Bridge so that he could work out at Gold's Gym while Vince Gironda was still there, and Arnold and Franco and Frank Zane and all of those guys were
Yeah,
working out there. He has Vince Gironda stories, just ask him anything, and he's got an hysterical one. Yeah, I think he did call Arnold a fat fuck.
yeah, I think that's pretty funny. But back to the whole feminism thing. It's like I remember going to bodybuilding shows in Albany, New York, with my dad, and there weren't women there. It was
Mm.
like the only women there were in the audience. Now, is
Mhm.
there such thing as a bodybuilding show that doesn't have women in it? I
Oh
really
no,
don't want to see women in just barely bikinis, little
I know.
triangles on their breasts and their loin
Yeah,
area. I don't want to see that. I don't
yeah,
go to a
but
bodybuilding competition to see women.
I know neither do I, and I sort of sit through and suffer through it, until because I mean I say since I've competed for 7 years, I know a lot of the competitors in Michigan, so we all go to see each other in the shows when we're prepping, and to hoot and
Yeah.
holler for each other, and I sort of sit and endure the women. But actually, the God honest truth is that the shows are now predominantly women. And alas, bikini, because it's fairly easy to do for a woman. I mean, for a man
Yeah.
to enter a bodybuilding contest, you're talking years of work. A fit chick can diet down a little bit and go on stage, pretty
Right.
much. So it's
Right.
a very low standard to enter. Not necessarily saying it's a low standard to win, because I do know a number of women at my own gym who are competitors, and they work as hard as any man in there. So that's no slight to their work. But because it seems to be a lower bar to get in, the shows are now at least 60 to 70% women
Mm.
competitors. And, I asked my coach about them because he runs most of the shows here in Michigan. And he says it saved the sport. We couldn't afford to run the shows if it weren't for
Wow.
the competitors, because they bring in so much entry money. They bring in so many ticket sales with family and friends, that come to see them compete. It's it's necessary for the business. In fact, there is a newer, just this last year or a couple of years, there's been a new women's category even added, in addition to bikini. Uh, a wellness more for women who are a little bigger and heavier from the hips down, who don't have quite that, bikini physique. And a lot of women don't. It's if you're not genetically built that way, you're kind of out of the running. you know
Right.
so they just said no for a lot of women who are just heavier in the hips and broader in the hips and they have more size in their legs and all. So they created a new category that was more in keeping with a lot of women's physiology, and it opened it up to again a lot more contestants. But well, there it is, such is the
That
world.
that but there's a double standard there because that something like that is not like if a chubby guy went on stage, people would be like, "Get off us!" They boo him off stage. But you
Yeah.
get a woman who's naturally thick. I guess that's the word now, thicker or
Okay.
thick, whatever the word is. It seems like that's more accepted. Whereas with men, we got to be ripped, man. When we go on stage, we have to be.
Yes. No margin for error. No, I know. But you see, even there, I mean, differences in women. You get a woman who's at 12% body fat and she looks very ripped. Me, I'm sitting at 12% body fat. I don't want to take off my shirt.
Right.
I mean, I've competed at 5.5%. And just for the perversity of it, I still had love handles. What's up with that? 5.5% body and still love handles.
Right.
What can you do? But
that is true.
But you're right. You know, there is much more. Well, I don't know. I'll take this back. Women will go up not nearly as conditioned as they can be, but the women that win, hands down, they deserve it. And there is a degree of conditioning and firmness there that that in some cases is really astonishing. And no, it's not 5% body fat, but I mean, for a woman, that's like, I don't know that I've ever seen one. Maybe some of the Olympia competitors do that, but yeah, for a man, if you're not 5 or 6% body fat, you probably don't belong on stage.
Yeah. I've always said that when women are ripped, when women have a ripped body, their face also looks ripped. It just like their femininity just goes out the door.
Yeah, man face. Yeah, it's real. It's real. And I mean, I look kind of gaunt too, but I actually kind of like the look because I was fat all my life and actually like have cheekbones.
Yeah.
You know, and slightly sunken cheeks, you know, I think I look a whole lot better when I'm lean. But I'm cold all the time and my wife wants me to be warm. So, you know, you know, it's the trade-off. I'm tired. I'm cold and I don't feel good. You just don't feel good. You can't sustain it. I can't sustain it.
No. What does the future of bodybuilding for you look like? What is your next goal? You've competed for so many years. Is it be bigger? Is it are you obviously now in the masters category?
Oh, grandmasters. That's what we call ourselves, grandmasters now.
Right.
Geezer class. Come on, just call it geezer class. I know what I am.
The geezer class, right?
It's okay. I've competed 11 times now, and I have been dead last most of those times. But the last 4 or 5 shows I did, I actually won. So the last couple or 3 years, I began to win at state level competition and actually beating other men.
Nice.
And so my coach told me he wanted me year before last, no, we're 2022. He wanted me in 2020 to go to nationals. And the COVID hit, and he said the shows are just catastrophes. What they have to do over there, just don't bother. So I went to national level competition in September. It's in Pittsburgh, and I took 3rd and 6th in classic and in bodybuilding in the 60 to 69 year category, which is not bad until I tell you that 3rd and 6th was also last and last. I'm just not big enough for that ride yet. And so coach and I decided that I would take this year off from competition and I would do what I can to get big, which, as you know, the older we get, the harder it is. But I'll do what I can to get big and to eat well and to lift as heavy as I can. And I will go to nationals in 2023 and God willing win. And I will earn my pro card. I will be an IFBB pro bodybuilder, which will probably also mark my retirement. Because I don't know about you, but you know, the arthritis is setting in, the neck is stiff, the back is stiff. I have a torn quad tendon on my right knee. You know, the elbows and the shoulders are starting to give out, and I hurt a lot. And so the lifting is not helping. So sooner or later, I have to quit this stuff and do something a little more sustainable. You know, it's a little more pleasant that just kind of keeps the joints working and keeps me flexible and healthy. So in the meantime, I always get it. It's so much fun in the gym because I've been busy lately, so I've been going later in the day, and there are new people joining the gym. So I was in there late, like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, and these young bucks come up. It's always the same way. Sir, okay. Pardon me, sir, but can I ask how old you are? And I say, you tell me. And they usually say something like 52 or 53. And when I tell them that I'm
Right.
61, their eyes just bulge out. They say, wow, I want
Yeah.
to look like you when I'm your age, or my dad doesn't look as good as you. Or I said, Dad, hell, I'm
Yeah.
old enough to be your granddad. I was next to this 15-year-old kid who was squatting 405 for reps. I mean, what are they putting in the water nowadays? He's 15 years old. Lord
I
have mercy,
know.
it's beautiful.
Is that
I just
amazing?
stopped and watched. It's amazing. So I don't know, better training standards, better protocols, better understanding of exercise physiology and all, and probably a little gear on the side, even for teens. But it was a beautiful thing to see. So for myself, I'm gonna compete probably towards, it'll be September of next year. So I'm in the game for about 21 more months, and we'll see after that. Yeah, chiropractic, acupuncture, massage. Yes, I love them. I got one of those massage guns, with the round ball that just pummels you half to death. I got one of those for Christmas. Yes,
Those
I
are
take care
incredible.
of it as best I can. Yeah.
What is your most despised, but your most despised lift, but you gotta do it? What is the one lift that you do, you're like, ugh, but
Squats.
you gotta do it?
It's squats. and only because, like I said, I have a torn quad tendon above my right knee, and it's not reparable. I've been to an orthopedic surgeon. The tear is not where the tendon connects to the bone, but it's about an inch up, and it's a third torn, and it just hurts like hell. I get persistent tendonitis in my knee, and I need to squat. I was squatting 195, only 195 the other Monday. I'm still sore, and it's just tendonitis, and I just hurt all the time. So I can do more. I can squat 225 for reps, but I'm going to limp for a week, and it's just not worth it. So I have to do workarounds as often as I can. But coach wanted me to do at least a month or two of squats, just for the supplemental lifting and the postural muscles and all the supportive muscles. So I said yes, sir, and I did them, but I hate them only because they hurt.
I have a guy that I know who opened up a gym near me, King Gym, and I became acquainted with a fella in there in a wheelchair, Johnny Quinn. He's an IFBB pro. Many years ago, had a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
Yeah, and what a neat guy. And he was just in Orlando. Didn't take the title. I think he came in third, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But he's there every day. But the owner of the gym, this guy that I know, Brett is Brett's, I don't know. I don't think he's 10 years younger. He might be 53. So maybe like 8 years younger than me. And he looks great for his age, but he does squats with a belt. He's on a platform.
Okay.
Puts a belt around his waist, and he can't put anything on his back or shoulders anymore. So he does this platform squat.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a belt around his waist. You know how when guys do when guys do dips or chin ups, they have the belt with
the belt has a cable attached to the front of it. Yeah, we have one of those things. And I mean, if it were my neck or my back, that might help. But since it's my knees, I can't squat without bending my knees.
Right, right.
Thankfully, leg press doesn't hurt nearly as bad. So I do a lot of leg pressing, and that seems to be okay.
Do you like the leg press where you're kind of sitting just like in a normal sitting position, or the one where you're almost like on your back?
Yeah, 45-degree angle. Yeah.
Okay.
And I push that. We also have one that's
and you're pushing
vertical. Yeah. Yeah, you're pushing up at a 45-degree angle. We also have one where it's completely vertical, where you just lay down and put your feet straight over your head or straight up.
Right.
Comes down that
Right.
way.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes,
What?
to the comment earlier about having surgery and lots of PT. Yeah, as I say, I saw the orthopedic surgeon. He says it would be stitching tendon to tendon, and the prognosis for that was not really that great. And he
Right.
recommended against surgery. So I did have PT. Actually, that's where I learned to use what's the word? The bands, the blood flow restriction bands. He sent me to a physical therapist who specialized in blood flow restriction. That's painful, but I'm actually thank you for the comment, because I remember my bands. Maybe I'll talk to my coach and say, hey, could I do some blood flow restriction stuff for my legs and get more perceived effort out of lighter weights, and that might be able to take it to the next. Thank you, John. I appreciate the comment.
Excellent. What is your
Yeah.
favorite lift?
Honestly, deadlift. I said chins, because I think I was 51 before I could chin myself even once. And so I
Wow.
practiced that. And so I can chin, until I'm bored, and it's not a problem. I remember a couple of months ago, I had one of these, sir, may I ask how old you are, conversations. I like to chin back in the squat racks because it's out of the way, it's in the corner, and I don't like the attention. And so I was back in the squat racks doing my chins, and there's these two young bucks, loading up 4 plates on the squat bar in the next cage over. And so here's this old guy. They sort of give me one glance and go on. So I get up there and I chin myself. I'm going 4, 5, 6 reps, and one of them kind of does one of these. And then I just keep going 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the second one just sort of, and finally I got bored about 18, 19, or 20, and I dropped down, and like they're just sort of stare at this, pardon me, sir, but how old are you? You chinned yourself 20 times. That ain't bad for. And I said, yeah. And we had a fine conversation, and it was all good. But so I like chinning, but I can deadlift. I can deadlift pretty well. I don't know if it's proportions and all, but I can move.
Let me ask you about chinning then. There's a lot of guys who can't lift their body weight.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who just hangs on the bar and they just can't get themselves up?
Mm-hmm.
How would they start?
You can do lat pull downs. That does help. Where you sit with your legs straight and you just pull down this way. What actually helped with me was doing negatives. I got a bar where I could put a step underneath it, where I could stand on the step and reach the bar. And I did negatives. So I would jump up and hold myself up and just resist while I slowly, fell back down to the ground. And then I would leap up again, and just resist it as long as I could. And that actually did me a lot of good. And in time, I built up enough strength to where I could, pull myself up once. It was a beautiful day.
How many days a week are you in the gym?
7.
7 days a week.
I have a 5-day split, and the two off days I go and do some light cardio. So I just plan for 7, and actually life usually gets in the way, so I may miss 1 day a week, but I aim to go 7. And that's one thing I do for myself. It's an appointment in the calendar that I keep with myself. And it's just one of those things that's important enough to me that I make the time for it. And honestly, it's the only hour out of the day when I do not have my phone on me and I am left completely alone. And
is this a regular gym or a bodybuilding gym?
It's a powerhouse is what it is. But it's like the mothership of powerhouse gyms. Corporate headquarters is behind us. And it's huge. It's like 70,000 square feet. And it's got every conceivable piece of equipment. And there were a lot. I went there for the equipment. It's near my house. It's an 11-minute drive. And there were a lot of competitors there who work out. So, competitors are a little meshuggah, and it's nice to be around people who sort of get it.
Yeah.
That's really kind of nice, because some of the other gyms, they just didn't know what to make of me.
Well, it's funny when you think about the real popular gym right now, that's $10 a month, and
yes,
everybody knows what that one is.
Do not name the place of the purple. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But what's funny is the whole concept of the no judgment zone. It's like, you know what? I want to be judged. I want to be judged. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be. When I'm in the gym, if I'm doing something wrong, or if someone needs to help me optimize something, I mean, I don't want to be mocked, but if I am open to judgment in a gym, that is for my physical growth. That is not.
Yeah.
I don't view that as a bad thing. Like, when did that become bad? And when did people see? To me, I think they set up like a straw dog argument, because I've been going to gyms for over 40 years, and I've never seen people busting other people's chops in gym, like literally mocking people.
No.
They're just so against the bodybuilder thing, and letting out a good yell when you're getting that last rep in.
Yeah. Mild grunting got me thrown out once at one of those places.
Isn't that amazing?
Breathing hard.
Unreal. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I only went because I was going to another gym at the time that did not have a stair mill like an escalator, and he wanted me to do that for my cardio. So I signed up at the place of the purple, because they had a whole bank of them, and I could afford a couple of months. That's all I did was cardio there. But, I had to do one workout there, and I got to grunting a little hard, and they said, "Pardon me, you can't do that in here." I never had the lunk alarm go off on me. I wanted to. I mean, for me, that'd be a badge of honor. Right. You're not judging. Thank you. Yes.
It's funny. That is funny.
It is. It is.
Well, let's do this again. We've gone almost an hour and a half. I know the audience enjoyed it. Well, I think next time we'll open up for a lot of questions.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Definitely. How about this? How about giving the audience a blessing? I know some people don't know what that is all about. They have no idea what that's about. But how about blessing the audience tonight?
All right. Don't mind doing that. And it's well. I thank you. I'm on Zoom until 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight, so I'll go on to my next event after this. But this has been really fun. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, all of you in the audience who have been here and have listened to me ramble on all of this. I've been trying as best I can to keep up with the comments. I appreciate your engagement, and when we do it again, more than glad to address what y'all got in the chat, and be of whatever service I can to the rest of you. In Orthodoxy, we have usually some very long blessings, but I have a very short one. And it's as simple as this: the blessing of the Lord and his mercy be upon you, through his grace and love for mankind, always, now, and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Y'all go be the best men you can be. Continue to listen to what Uncle George tells you to do, and go and execute. And be a blessing to everybody that you encounter. Make their lives better, and that will make you a better man.
Amen. I will say amen to that. How can people find you, Father Michael Butler, if they want to find out more?
If they want to find me, actually, the place where I've sort of come out on social media lately, I've been very quiet on social media. Find me on Instagram. You can find Fr Michael B. I don't know how to put a comment on if I wanted to do it myself, but also my hashtag on Instagram is average AVG numeral 2 alpha, average to alpha, AVG numeral 2 alpha, or Fr Michael B, for short for Father Michael B. And you can find me there. I haven't put much up, but I will have more stuff up in the future. Again, all sort of pro-masculine content, helping men to become the best they can be. And I hope in time to be bringing in not only scripture, but the wisdom of the fathers of the church into the conversation, and see what the early Christian fathers had to say about being excellent men. Not only how to be good men, but how to be good at being men as well.
Excellent. That sounds great. Father Michael Butler from Livonia, Michigan, amateur bodybuilder, 61 years old. And I think we might have a series here. It sounds like everybody's quite engaged. So I definitely want to have you on again. I think this was great. I think it was good for men. I think it was good for women. I think everybody benefited from it. So thank you very much for your time, and I will catch up with you soon.
Very good, very good. And yes, Livonia, Michigan. Yes, northwest suburb of Detroit. So you can find my church there if you're local and care to stop by. All right, thank you too much. Forgive me, I do have to go. So God bless you all. Have a great night.
Good night now. Thank you, Father. Yeah. Well, there we go. Normally, I just say goodbye, and that's it. Did you enjoy that conversation that we had? That was pretty good. And I think we'll have him on a regular basis. He's got a lot to say. And I just, it's interesting. I'm very, very careful with who I have on as guests. Now, when it comes to when I bring people on from the audience, when I share a link, that's a different story. But when it comes to guests, I am very careful, not in a cautious kind of way, but I want to make sure that I have people on that are smarter than me. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. And if you go to his church online, Holy Transfiguration Orthodox Church, take a look at his education. Take a look at his education and see what he has done academically. He is Father Michael Butler. He is also Dr. Butler as well. Brilliant guy, based, down to earth, husband, father, and whether he knows it or not, tonight he's a YouTuber. So I was happy to have him here, and I hope you enjoyed it. So I will see you soon. There's a lot of choices you got on YouTube, right? But you chose to spend a couple minutes with me and Father Butler, and for that, I am thankful. Have a great night, everybody.